Hello, chilly, relaxy, talky time. How are you? That is the name that we're sticking with now. I mean, it took us like 2 days to come up with the name Vlogalogue, but if you just want to go and throw that away because DK feels like it, whatever. So, here's my kind of summing up of the week so far. Alex said death and dying a lot. Like 30-something times. I was gonna count how many times, but then I got bored. Victoria wanted to seem, at the beginning, to get all semantic about what terrifying means, because, you know, when you can't argue the point, you argue semantics. And then she got all uppity that she hasn't thought about death because she's young. Well, give it another year, and you'll be thinking about it constantly, as you realise that the best years of your life are fading away, and that death is just another short stone's throw across the lake. And then Kevin was getting all philosophical about death and life, but then again so was Alex. And quite frankly, my response to that is to be bored out of my mind. And I mean that in the nicest way that somebody can ever mean that, I think. Which probably isn't that nice anyway. Here's kind of my mindset to that, is worrying about your life having a point or meaning or whatever is kind of in itself utterly pointless. See, everything either has a point or nothing has a point. You have to admit that life is, no matter what happens in your life, it has a point. You know, even if you spend your life wasted playing video games, that is still a point to a life. Or you have to go the nihilistic, no, it's not named after me, but shut up, I just don't like things, way, where you have to admit that nothing matters and, you know, your life is utterly pointless. And the nihilistic way is kind of boring, so I'm going to assume that you automatically assume that life has a point, no matter how pointless you may think your life is, it still has a... This is getting complicated fast. But my point being that I automatically assume that life has to have a point, or there's no point in arguing if it has a point or not. And I think when you try and have a discussion about like the value of your life and your time, you're automatically talking about a rigged game, so there's no point in trying to... How do I explain this? It's really difficult to explain, but your life is finite, okay? And it's always going to be finite. You have a certain amount of years on this planet, and as soon as you start talking about, well, I'm gonna freeze my consciousness in a computer, you're missing the point of the entire conversation about what you're gonna do with your life. If you're like, well, if my life is endless, then it automatically has more meaning than yours, because you only live 60 years. Oh, that is not the point of life. The point of life to live. I could die tomorrow, but, you know, that would suck, don't get me wrong. But I would like to say that if I died tomorrow, or in 30 years' time, or in 40 years' time, or in 100 years' time, it's still a life that I led. Let's come down a bit. Come on. One thing I did actually enjoy from this week is Kevin's idea of life being like a video game, where when you finish it or you plateau or whatever, you reach that point where it's like, oh, it's no longer pertinent to your life or interesting to you or whatever, or enjoyable, or however you want to phrase it. And I like that idea as like an organic metaphor for life. However, I'd like to change it so it's less depressing. Life isn't one video game. Life is all of the video games you will ever play. Life is several video games, all various challenges and objectives and things that you want to do, all kind of enjoyable in their own sadistic way, all something that you look back on and enjoy. And even if you can't say that it was a good time, you can say it was the time that, you know, you got through, or you got 100% completion or whatever. And I think that's where a video game life metaphor needs to come in, is an idea of continuing to do different things. So one day you're playing Call of Duty because you're an idiot, and the next day you're playing Final Fantasy VII because you're on a nostalgia trip. Well, this has just been a real ramble and a lot of tortured metaphors. Well, I suppose if we're gonna get real serious for a second, what truly terrifies me, and I mean like keeps me awake at night, throws me off for like actual, like the definition of the word terrified, it's that eventually my mental illnesses and deficiencies will come to define me as a person rather than my characteristics, as they slowly get worn away by my brain not being able to do right and the medication I'm on. I eventually become less of me and more of all of the side effects of the various things that I've been diagnosed with throughout the years. That terrifies me. Like a lot. This entire video is on askew because I set up the camera wrong because I did it quickly. So I've got a downward slightly to the side angle with the center here when it actually should be like, what, here? Yeah, ish. So I haven't been looking at you the entire time even when I am looking at you. But thanks for being nice to Meg, and thanks to being one of my favoritist comment sections on the internet. So get commenting. I know what the problem is actually. I'm in interview mode. You see, no matter what way I go, I've set it up so it's in interview profile. It's because I'm famous, you see. I'm so bad at my job. I hope that my bosses never realise that I am not a filmmaker. I'm a glorified vlogger. Don't tell them, okay guys? I'm serious. Don't.